What is going on, guys? Happy Monday to everybody. And this live stream is going to be dedicated to NBA strategy and advanced FC settings. Alright? What is going on, guys? I don't see anybody in the chat, so that's fine. If I'm only talking to about 8 of you, that is cool. If I'm talking to 80 of you and it just hasn't updated, let me know in the chat how everybody's doing. So I want this to be an open Q&A session as well. So if you guys have any questions for NBA in general, late swapping, all that, I will be covering it all right now. All right. But I'm excited because NBA is something that, well, first of all, I started my DFS career with NBA. I literally just played NBA. And it was one of the easiest sports to play because, one, you didn't need an optimizer, which is great. Two, I understood the game of basketball because I played it. That was one of the sports that I played in high school, and I just understood how things worked. I understood how the stats worked and everything. But once I started playing other DFS sports, I understood the strategy behind them all. NBA kind of fell back because I realized that it wasn't as advanced as these other sports, and because of that, there wasn't as much of an edge. So I relied more on MLB. I relied more on things like League of Legends, like NFL, because that has stacking with it. But NBA, there is such an advantage if you pay attention to detail, okay? NBA can be one of the most rewarding sports if you are sitting in front of your computer and you have nothing to do all day, every day. And you're sitting there watching NBA, right? And when there's a person that gets ruled out, that can change and alter the entire slate. If it does it before lock, great. If it does it after lock, even better, because that is your biggest advantage, because there's so many players that get ruled out, especially in this time of the NBA bubble. There's so many things that change. We're gonna cover from the very. We're gonna cover the very first, I guess, topic with NBA, and for you guys who have heard this, feel free to just ignore this part. But the single most important stat in all of NBA is usage rate. Usage rate, usage rate, usage rate. When you take one person off a court, how does it impact the rest of the team? There's 5 players on a court, right, at any given time. You take one of those players off, how does that affect the rest of the players that they are playing with? First of all, I highlighted that on my Patreon. If you guys don't see the usage rate, it is column E. And the one thing that you guys have to understand is how to observe this number, okay? When somebody gets ruled out, one player does well. Let's take an actual example. Let's take yesterday. Paul George got ruled out after lock. Kawhi Leonard, usage goes way up. His fantasy points per minute is equivalent to that of LeBron James or Anthony Davis. He averages 1.57 fantasy points per minute with Paul George off the court, and I think with Pat Bev it went up even more. He ended up becoming such a good play after lock that I went back to my Patreon, and you guys can go and look at this. And you guys need to do this because I'll put my favorite plays after lock in the comment section. I said, hey, guys, Kawhi Leonard and JaMychal Green are the best plays with Paul George off the court. Their usage goes up. Because of that, you need to make a late swap. No matter what. I don't care what your lineup looks like after that. If Kawhi Leonard, if Paul George was ruled out before lock, that Kawhi Leonard percentage ownership is looking like 60 to 70%, period. That is the play. Probably even higher than that in most contests, okay? I got Kawhi Leonard because the news came out after the first game. It was like in the middle of the first game, too, so it wasn't even that bad. I got Kawhi Leonard yesterday at 5% ownership. Are you kidding me? That is such an edge in these big contests. I even got him at like 2% in some of these other ones. When he could have been the most obvious play, it's one because the casual player is just so they're so lazy. They just are like, oh, whatever, I'll just roll with my lineup. Or two, because they just don't feel like doing. They don't understand. They don't understand the usage rate and how that affects different players. Okay, so that is a strategy. The strategy is literally late swapping. Okay, if you don't know how to late swap, I'll teach you how to do that in this video, and I'll teach you how to late swap with MME, and I'll also teach you some advanced settings. So that is how this works. All right, that is how NBA works. It's unlike MLB, where if a player gets ruled out, you late swap because of batting order and things like that. But no sport where a player gets ruled out does it affect other players on the court that much. Okay, NBA is by far, I guess, the most. I don't know where I'm looking for. I don't really know where I was going with that. But the NBA, if one player gets ruled out, it affects the entirety of the entire slate, okay? The entirety of the entire slate. It literally affects the entire slate, okay? With MLB, if one player gets ruled out of the batting order, it doesn't really affect it that much, okay? So let's take a look at this slate. And I guess how can you approach it as far as advanced settings and things of that nature? First of all, you guys all know you're going to take the highest owned players in cash, right? And you're going to find the benchmark. That is, you guys know this for any other videos. To find the benchmark, you need to crunch by ownership. If you don't have ownership, you simply take the players, okay, and you copy them. You go to your upload data, you paste them, and then you put the ownership right here, this ownership column, right? You copy it. I'm just showing you real quick. You put that in as a projection, and it takes the percentage ownership, puts it in as an actual projection, and there you have it. You have the highest owned players if you crunch by my projections, but I have the full package here so I can crunch by ownership. Right now, as of right now, this is going to be the optimal lineup because of ownership projections. Right now, Dallas looks like the chalk. All right, you want this benchmark for one reason, and that is the ownership. What does the combined ownership on the slate look like? It looks like 334. That is your benchmark. And just like any other slate, any other sport, you longtime viewers have seen me do this before. This determines how much you're going to differentiate yourself in each contest. All right, the benchmark is at 334, and this is your chalk lineup. You don't want to throw this into big GBPs, obviously, right? The next thing you want to do is when looking at my cheat sheet is after you find the benchmark, you can erase all the projections. You got your benchmark, right? You want to take the actual projections because I upload my actual projections based on usage rates, as I just explained, which are so important. Okay, you put in the players. You take the projections, the actual projections, which are here. You copy them in, and yes, these are custom. You guys have to check this, by the way, like every other minute, pretty much, because the NBA is it just changes so dramatically before lock. But I have a very big emphasis on usage, whereas in all these other sites do not. So like yesterday, because of my emphasis on usage was so heavy, Kawhi Leonard was projected way undervalued. Sorry, it was projected at like a 6.2, I think it was like a value, and at his price tag of 9.3K, that's extremely high. Okay, and he needed to be in all your lineups. So you guys have to put those custom projections in there. Okay. All right. After we have those projections, what you're going to do, I'll show you some advanced settings now. Do you need to have a minimum salary? And this is the one sport where I say, yes, you do. Not because these other players that are really, really cheap can't explode or anything, but usually the optimal, I am comparing this to other sports, is usually closer to 50,000 than any other sport. In League of Legends and MLB and NFL, you'll see the optimal lineup have like 47,000, have like $3,000 left over, and it happens almost every slate. It's never even close to 50,000. But the NBA, it usually is pretty close to 50,000. All right, so when I set my salary, I usually set it based on slate size. It's about 48,500 to 49. I usually set 49. Okay, I always want that to be at least. Okay, at least the bottom, the minimum for salary. My randomness, I usually set this to about 100. Okay, if it's based on your actual projections that you have, these projections that I'm bringing in. Okay, is team stacking viable in NBA? All right, well, actually, let's do this. I will show you if team stacking is viable for NBA. Let's go back and calculate by actual score. Let's look at yesterday's slate. Are there any more than one team is what we're looking for. All right. So 49,500, like I said, is pretty close to 50,000. We have Fultz, Reddick, Richardson. They are all from different teams. So this is a 7-game slate. 7-game, nope. Definitely no stacking involved here. Let's go back one more. You guys will see. All right, we have 2, okay, and then 2. This is a 5-game slate. All right, so let's look here. Five games. All right, well, let's look for 6. Does 6 have any stacks? All right, so this has 3, and again, it's really close to 50,000. So, and then 2 stacks. So this is like a 3-2. Okay, so the point I guess I just tried to get across from you guys is there's really no stacking, and if you do stack for the smaller slates, I recommend 2, okay? It's really not that big of a deal. As far as other sports go, this is not a team-correlated sport, which means that the better your team, or unless they're going to the like triple OT, quadruple OT, and you can base your settings on that notion sometimes. Unless your team is going to like triple, quadruple overtime, team stacking is not a thing. It's not necessary for the sport. For MLB it is, for League of Legends it is, for other sports it may be. But for NBA, and this is why the edge isn't so big for your in terms of Fantasy Cruncher, for NBA, it's because there's no like advanced settings that are set in stone, okay? It really does come down to individual player success, okay? Individual player success and value for each team. All right, so let's take a look at my spreadsheet again. If you are MMEing, I always recommend the trend column here, okay? The trend column paints a very good picture on what kind of exposures you should be setting on your players. Your exposures there's the tab. Your exposures go here. So let's say I take my list here and I use the trend column as my exposures. What the trend column is showing you is what the ownership, I'm pointing at my screen, you guys can't see that. And what's going on, guys? I'm sorry, I didn't stop and look at the chat. What the trend column is showing you is what the ownership should be based on my projections. Okay? And then what the column next to it, what column I, again, I'm pointing to my screen like you guys can see what I'm pointing at. My column I is showing what the ownership projections actually are. So, like for instance, if we look down here at Ayton, 47.2%, the ownership is projected at 47.2%. Well, my projections say that it should be 20.33, and if you guys don't know what overrating is, I have a bunch of other videos on that. But essentially, I'm saying Ayton is extremely overrated today. Not saying he's a bad play. I'm saying that based on the projections that I have and based on what the public thinks, he is really, really inflated in ownership. Okay? So, what you need to do if you are MMEing and if you're grabbing 20, 150 different lineups, you should be using this exposure. All right? And I got this question asked before. When uploading your exposures here and you're crunching, right? Let's say you're crunching 20 lineups and using my projections, setting your randomness to about 100. All right, let's crunch 20. All right, you should have a decent amount of exposure to pretty much everybody because nobody really is over 30%. If you guys look back at my cheat sheet, I didn't see anybody over 30. 31 here with Giannis, okay? I guess he's the highest. So technically, based on my projections, he should be the highest. All right? But with the volatility of the NBA and what my projections are showing is that there's so many there's a ton of overreaction to other players in the NBA that there shouldn't be. Okay? So when you set that trend column and you're coming up with all of these different lineups, you shouldn't have a high owned lineup, period. Okay? Yes. You never knew what the trend column was. Well, there you go. So the trend column, hopefully that explains things, and hopefully you understand it after that. This shows what the ownership should be based on my projections. Okay? And you can use that as exposures, because technically that shows not an overreaction, right? It shows it based on the actual projection. And you guys will know this. All these are close to $50,000, which just goes to show you that, oh, there's a 49 right here. Goes to show you the NBA really does get close to the optimal as far as $50,000 used. All right? So I've also got a question. If I try crunching 150 lineups here, usually the trend column cuts it off and there's not enough people. Let's see if it does it this time. Well, this time it actually crunched 150. But let's just hypothetically say I set my exposures right to the trend column, and for some reason FC has a problem with crunching. Okay, it doesn't allow you to put in every single player or enough of one player, and it gives you an error message, which does happen. What I do, let's just hypothetically say it gives me an error, is I multiply it 1.1, and it will boost all these guys by 10%. The trend column percent by 10%. I use that until it works. I keep bumping it up by 0.10 or 0.1, and sometimes 0.05. And you keep bumping that up until you get your desired amount of exposures, and then that's what I put into my trend or my exposures. Okay? But that's how you work NBA. I mean, honestly, and I'm about to show you the biggest edge here in a second, it's so straightforward. It makes me feel stupid when I'm messing with my MLB and I'm picking my contests for MLB and my NFL settings and my League of Legends. It really is like, this is it right here, and then I throw these into a contest. Okay, but again, you need to go back to your benchmark and you need to look at the ownership. So for instance, if I'm picking, let's just run through it real quick. I know for all of you guys have seen this many times. Let's just hypothetically saying I'm picking a 50-person GPP and I'm entering one lineup. Let's just make it very simple. All right, my formula is this. Take the contest size divided by 2, which is 25. Subtract it, that number, 25 minus 334, which is the benchmark. Again, I'm pointing at my screen. 334, that's not 4. 334 minus 25, 309. I go back to my lineups and look for a lineup that's going to differentiate myself. It's going to have the equivalent of 309% ownership. I might not even have it here because I only crunched 20 lineups. Yeah, so they're all way off. So what I would do is I would decrease my randomness here. Change all plays. 150. Yeah, I would decrease my randomness. I'm looking for a 50-person GPP, right? Sort lineups by ownership. What was the number I was looking for? 309. I might even have to go a little bit less. So like I said, you do not have to get different. When you're looking at NBA players, some of these guys are all of these guys usually fly under the radar. There's so much chalk in here. You have to differentiate yourself barely. What am I looking for? 304? Is that right? Ownership. Yeah, it is. And this was the optimal over here. Am I looking at this right? 334. Ownership. I can't differentiate myself that. Alright, so here's what I would do then. If I'm running into that issue, this is like a real world problem right now. A real DFS problem. Crunch by ownership. And then look. Huh. Oh, do you know why? I'll tell you why it's doing that. It's because I have exposures in here. That'll explain it. I knew there was something weird. Yeah, so now I'm getting higher ownership. All right, so that's how you do it. So now with sort my lineups, I'm looking for a lineup at 309, right? Yeah, 309's right here. All right, so this would be the lineup I'd be entering into that 50-person GPP. Goodness, sorry that took so long. You guys just saw one. You guys just saw my entire thought process right there. All right. If you haven't used the formula, I posted that formula in a 10-minute video. It's a contest selection strategy on my Patreon exclusive playlist. Feel free to go and look at that. It's more in depth on the strategy, how to differentiate yourself just enough dependent on contest size. All right. All right. So now let's do the late swapping tutorial, I guess you could say. Let me go to DraftKings. Let's just hypothetically say I am entering a lineup. All right. Let's just make this very, very simple. Let's take this entry. Let's actually do a real entry. I know I'm going to be playing $109 here. Let's try this guy. I haven't played him yet. Let's just pick a lineup. This is going to be my lineup. You ready? Don't steal it. This is going to take it down right here. Oops, I need one more. All right, fine. This is how I construct lineups every single time, guys, just FYI. Boom. That's taking it down. All right, no. So let's say I have a lineup in there, right? All right. And 2 minutes after lock. I don't know. Who's on the slate today? The Lakers are on the slate, right? Yeah, the Lakers are on the slate. Ready? LeBron James gets ruled out. I'm in panic mode. The next game starts in 30 minutes. I'm in panic mode, right? LeBron James gets ruled out. And I'm waiting for Matt to post that Patreon projection. And then I finally get that Patreon note that says, hey, LeBron James got ruled out. AD is a must. Danny Green is a must. So here's what you have to do. Take out your entire lineup and include those guys. I don't care how you get them in. Get them in. All right. Got it. I got my orders from Matt. Now let's go to edit entries. All right. I'm taking my one entry here. I'm going to download it. Boom. Here's my entry. Let's just save it. It's DK entries 49. Got it. All right. I'm going back to Fantasy Cruncher. Late Swaptimizer. All right. Also, before you click on that, you know you want Danny Green and AD. By the way, this is totally hypothetical. I'm not saying either one of those guys are good plays. Let's go to Los Angeles. We know LeBron James just got ruled out, right? Let's uncheck him. We're making sure AD and we're making sure Danny Green's in there. We're crunching one lineup. I don't know. Let's set the randomness to 0 for now. Okay. All right. All my settings are right. Late Swaptimizer. I'm getting that late swap in, right? So we go to downloads. I believe that's where it went. Yep, there it is. Boom. All right, I'm swaptimizing. And hold on, I need to check all the games. Late Swaptimizer. Let's try again. Swaptimize. Boom. It's got Danny Green, Anthony Davis in there. This is my new lineup. All right, cool. Export Late Swaptimize. There's my new one. Boom. Crunch 10. It's in a new Excel file. Upload. Crunch 10. Just change all your lineups. You just won. You just took down that contest because you made that late swap and other people did not. Okay? I did this, and you can do this with all of your entries because it swaptimizes it for you. Okay? So now, when I click download, it gives me this new one, this new sheet. I should have a Danny Green and Anthony Davis lineup. And now this is your new CSV. You can go right back in the Late Swaptimizer, upload a new one. Boom. There's your new lineup. Look how easy Fantasy Cruncher makes that. All right. Yesterday, like I said, when Paul George got ruled out, okay, completely out, I said, here's a list of Clippers that stand out to me. Get them into your lineup. You don't have to lock them, but you can increase their projection. You can lock them. Why not? Because you're trying to take down GPP, so you have to be aggressive, right? I guarantee that I got Kawhi Leonard, JaMychal Green. Who else was it? It was Lou Will, and there was some other guys. I think Zubac was in there, and he actually did phenomenal. And I put them into my lineups. I had like 60% exposure to all of them. You can even set an exposure on those guys. And I got them all in my lineup at like virtually no ownership. It made no sense. They were even the last game, and I can't believe people didn't adjust to it. And right before lock, I said, hey, get Bazley and get, if you guys are in the Discord, get Bazley and get, who's your other center? I'm blanking on his name. The other center. So get in your lineup. They both finish fire. And that is the strategy for NBA. Late swapping, late swapping, late swapping. That is how you win an NBA. Okay? MLB is, you can do that. You can late swap. And that's why I recommend grabbing some of the late stacks, because those guys, if they get ruled out on the late swap or on the late night slate, and you swap them for guys who are actually playing and they do very well, then that's a huge, huge edge for you. Okay? But yeah, that's how you do it. So that whole process, I mean, you can do it in less than 5 minutes. You can do a whole late swap. You can adjust your projections. You can use my projections. You can use my recommendations. Again, I will post my favorite plays not on the Patreon post. I usually do it in the comment section, so you don't have to go through all that fluff to get to my favorite plays. I usually just do it right there in the comment section. All right, let me go back and look at some questions. All right, so how do you approach a 713 entry? Yes, I mentioned that formula doesn't work for big GPPs, but let's go back, right? Let's say you're looking for a 713 person GPP. You divide that by 2, 356. Okay, cool. 334 minus 356. Obviously, that formula doesn't work for that big of a GPP. So what you have to do, depending on how many entries you're entering into that contest, you said it's single entry, right? All right. So let's crunch 150 lineups. Am I using the Swaptimizer still? No, I'm not. Okay. What you're going to do, assuming that you're setting your randomness up, I'd say 100% or whatever you decide to set it, all you're doing is you're sorting your lineup by ownership, and you want to make sure that your lineup looks nothing like the rest of the field, especially for 713 people, because you're trying to take that thing down, right? And obviously you're not locking in these guys. All right, forget that part. Scroll all the way to the bottom, look for a low-owned team. That's all you have to do. Just keep in mind it has to be very low-owned if you want a chance of taking down that GPP. This would be a lineup I'd probably use. I mean, you're setting yourself apart over about 100%. I have to go down even further. 100% is usually what I like to say. You need to differentiate yourself that much in order to take down that GPP, regardless of size. Okay. If you're doing 20, then I would check in some of the last 20 lineups, right? And then I would upload that to my 20 lineups for my 713 person GPP. But yeah, that's how I do it, guys. That's how you do NBA. NBA is all about late swap all the time. That is the most important thing in NBA by far. Not pre-lock adjustments, not looking at ownership directly before. Well, obviously that's important. But it's when somebody gets ruled out after, and especially with this NBA bubble situation going on, there's been so much of it happening. That's what you do. That's what you do every time. All right, another question. When possible, do you leave guard, forward, and flex spots for late games to make swaps easier? Yes, absolutely. That's another great point. I think Fantasy Cruncher has a setting already put in where it makes sure the later games are set in your flex, forward, and guard spots. I believe that's already built in. Yes, or at least it tries to its best ability. Okay, but that's how you do it. All right. Oh, my back is killing me. But yeah, I think that's it, guys. Do you have any more questions? If you guys don't have any more questions, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off here in about a minute. Go ahead and spam any last minute questions into the chat. I'm not talking specifically about this slate, by the way, for this video. I never said start AD and Danny Green. Please don't go and do that in your contest today. But I will be posting updates to my Patreon. And again, guys, we're always looking for the edge around here. We're always looking to get better and be better DFS players. NBA is very different from other DFS sports, but it is also very simple, but also very tough after lock. And that's where a lot of people screw up. A lot of the people screw up after lock. They don't change their lineups, or they don't change them enough, or they play the wrong plays. That's where we gain the edge. Daily Grind Fantasy. All right. No more questions. I will go ahead and sign off, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to put my next part or my next updates here in the next hour or so. Always remember this. I will be changing the Patreon post 30 minutes, at least 30 minutes prior to lock. And especially like yesterday when there's just madness, sometimes I don't even have a chance to update the post. I will post in the comment section my favorite plays. If you guys go back on the post and view them, and I believe you guys get notifications for that. If not, you guys will know whenever somebody gets rolled out to check back on my Patreon post. I will get to it if somebody's rolled out. I promise you I will get to it. And if you have specific questions, feel free to comment in the Patreon post too. No, LeBron James is not out, at least yet, okay? Don't assume that. Please do not assume that based on this stream. All right, guys. Have a great rest of your day. I will see you around 2:30, and let's cash.
Cracking.
Like a broken soul in a wonderland without angels. That is how I feel when the mirror shows me a stranger. Yeah. And I know they're just fragments of a world where your absence all I get to see. Take me back to the planet where you and I are still meant to be. 'Cause I'm incomplete when you ain't by my side, when you don't wake up next to me. Yeah, I'm incomplete. I need you here tonight to cover up these empty sheets. 'Cause I'm